What's up everyone? Welcome back to the garage. Today what we are going to do is discuss what it takes to get started in flux core welding. I always see online on some of the Facebook groups and forums that getting started in welding is too expensive, and a big cost of it is not the welder itself. It's all the accessories you need to go with it. So what I've done is I've come up with a list of decent quality welders and accessories you can purchase. I've got a couple different options in each category for the most part. If you take the most expensive item in each category we're going to cover, this list comes out to $416. That's including a grinder if you don't have one. The least expensive route through this video and the products in it is about $393. But what I've done is use the regular standard list price for everything. So this price list does not include any sales. It does not include any promo codes. It does not include any coupons. Since we're featuring many of the products in this video from YesWelder and Harbor Freight, as you guys well know, Harbor Freight's always running sales and coupons. YesWelder's been running a ton of deals. I also have a coupon code for YesWelder in the description below for 10% off. That would be Garage10 at checkout on YesWelder's website for 10% off your purchase. So right off the bat, you're gonna come in at under $393 or $416 if you choose some of the YesWelder products in this video. And that's not counting any deals or discounts you can get through Amazon as well. So I'm going to provide Amazon links, YesWelder links, and links to Harbor Freight. Just keep in mind that you can pick and choose. It's up to you to pick what you want out of this video. I'm just giving you some decent options to get you started. So without any further ado, let's get started. And we're going to start with the welders first. So I have the Titanium 125. That's what I bought when I first started learning how to weld. And at Harbor Freight, that's currently $215. It does flux core only, but it has been a great little machine for me. The other option I would strongly suggest is the YesWelder Flux 135 for $199 regular price. That welder will do stick welding as well as flux core welding, so you will get both. And if I were to start buying my stuff all over again, I would go with that instead of this Titanium 125, just for the fact that it's got stick welding in it already and you'd save a couple bucks. If you're looking to save even more money compared to what we're going to cover in this video, you can check out this video for the Simder 140 amp flux core welder. I did a video on it. We'll put that in a card up here. And you can check that out. It's normally $158. Right now I think it is on sale for $138 on Amazon. So if you're looking to save a little bit of cash over the rest of these, you can go that route. It is a decent little welder, welds just fine. It may be a little bit more frustrating at first just because there are no starting points or settings in the manual to guide you, but it welds just fine. And just as a little extra, even though this is about flux core welding, if you wanted to only stick weld, you can get this list for about $288 if you buy the YesWelder 125 amp stick welder that I did a little product deal alert on. I'll link that up here as well. In my opinion, if you're buying one machine, I would still go with the YesWelder Flux 135 because you get stick welding and flux core, and you've got more options available to you. So with the welders out of the way, the next important thing you're gonna need is a welding hood. Harbor Freight has this one available for $45. It's auto darkening, has some settings on the side as well as a grind mode. YesWelder has theirs for about around $42 on Amazon. It's up to you. They're probably about similar in quality. Now, if you're gonna spend any extra money on this list, I would definitely go and spend that on a better hood. I'm still using this Harbor Freight hood. However, I'm always wearing a hat, so I flip my hat around backwards and put this on so the headgear doesn't really bother me. If you don't wear a hat, you may find this headgear tends to get a little bit uncomfortable. So with a better welding helmet or hood, you're going to get nicer headgear, and then you can also get some better larger lenses to allow you to see more while you're welding. And I think it's definitely worth it to spend the money. The $45 option from Harbor Freight and the $42 option from YesWelder, both are auto darkening hoods, so you don't have to worry about flipping your hood down every time. And when you're not welding, it's gonna lighten up a little bit and allow you to see better. So with the hood and the welder, the titanium is the higher price one at $215. The Harbor Freight hood's higher priced at $45. So that's going to bring you to about $260 so far on the high end. The next thing I would suggest is going to be a spool of decent flux core wire. The reason I'm throwing this in is that a lot of these machines come with a roll of flux core wire in the box. However, it's unbranded and you don't really know how great a quality it's going to be, which can lead to a lot of problems as you're learning to weld. That may not be your technique or the machine. It could be just that the wire's not that great. This is Vulcan wire from Harbor Freight. It is decent wire. I've used almost 2 spools of it and it's been fine. However, I was buying it because it was only about $15 a spool. Currently it's closer to $20 a spool. So I would go ahead and buy a spool from a name brand like Forney, Lincoln, Hobart. Any of those brands are gonna be decent wire, and there's no point in getting the Harbor Freight unless you've got a Harbor Freight close and you're going there anyway. Then it's still fine wire to use. But buy a name brand wire. That's gonna take a lot of variables out of you learning how to weld at the start. So with the wire, that's gonna bring you, figure about $21 for a spool of wire. That's gonna bring you up to $281 so far. The next item on our list is gonna be another safety item, and that's gonna be your gloves. You don't wanna be welding without gloves on. Your hand's right up in there near the welds, and it's gonna get hot. You may need to hold the piece of metal with your other hand that also may be hot, so gloves are definitely a must. Now these are actual welding gloves from Harbor Freight, and they're long cuff, but they are kind of stiff and thick, which is nice. I use these particular ones for stick welding. But for MIG welding, I prefer to use just your regular old standard leather work gloves. And once they get dirty and beat up, I throw them away and get another pair for, you know, $5 to $7, depending on where you're buying them. You can even buy these in like 3 packs and more if you know you're gonna be going through them. I find these thick enough for most of what I do, especially when it comes to flux core welding. And I like that you have more feeling and better use of your hands than you do on these thicker, heavier gloves. So figure about $10 on a pair of gloves if you go for some actual welding gloves, or $5 to $7 if you go with the regular leather work gloves. So with the gloves on our list, that's gonna bring us to $291 so far at the high end. Remember, these are all the higher price out of the choices I'm giving you. So you can definitely come in a little bit cheaper on some of this stuff than others. The next thing I suggest that's not entirely necessary, but definitely is very handy to have, is a pair of MIG welding pliers. As you can see here, they've got a needle nose style point. They've got a little hammer anvil on them, so if you need to hit something, you can. You've also got some cutouts here for your nozzles and tips that'll help you get any removed if they're stuck. And you've also got a wire cutter here that will help you if you've got too much wire stick out or anything like that. You can cut it real nice and easy. And these will run you $16 for the YesWelder version. Harbor Freight's version is about $14. So with the pliers added, our running total is $307. Up next, you've got your hammer and your brush. I think the brush is more important than the hammer when it comes to flux core welding. It's gonna clean up all the slag, all the soot, and get the welds looking good. The hammer, I don't necessarily use a lot when I'm flux core welding. I use it more for stick welding and knocking off the slag. Once in a while, having a hammer flux core welding is handy for getting some spatter and other things off. So I would still get one, they're cheap enough. You're looking at about $13 for these two put together, and that's whether you're buying them at Harbor Freight or gonna find them on Amazon. That brings our running total so far to $320. The next thing we're gonna talk about are clamps and locking pliers. So I tend to use these locking pliers quite a bit. They're super easy to use, easy to adjust, they hold things just fine. Now I would recommend buying Harbor Freight's Pittsburgh line for these in a few different sizes and styles. You can see I've got some C style ones here, but I've also got your standard vice grip looking pliers, as well as a needle nose or narrow jaw set. And I use these all for welding and holding metal together. I recommend the Pittsburgh ones because they're cheap. They start at about $4 and go up to about 10, depending on what size and what style you get. And you're gonna be welding next to these. So they're gonna get spatter, they're gonna get slag, they're gonna get soot all over them. They may get hot, so there's no point in getting any that have rubber grips on them because they may melt. There's no sense in buying a set of super expensive pliers just to weld next to them. As long as they hold metal together and are easy to use, they're gonna be just fine. So set yourself a budget of about $30 and you can get a few different styles and sizes. And then after you've been welding for a little bit, you can go back, get some more of what you use the most of, get different sizes, whatever you decide you need to do from your experience and your welding style, you'll be able to build on what you started with. So with the locking pliers or clamps, you end up at about $350 for what we have so far on this list. Up next, we're gonna talk about some magnets. These are super handy for doing 90-degree corners, holding metal together. They'll do 45s. So these go a long way to freeing up your hands. There's different sizes and different styles. Harbor Freight carries them. Amazon's got all kinds of them. So starting out, your standard arrow shape or your little modified triangle shape are probably going to be the best. As you weld and determine what you need, you can add more later. You can get stronger ones. There's ones that have on-off switches on them. But to start out, these basic ones are going to be just fine. I have these on the list at about $17, so you'll be able to come in under that more than likely. And that brings us to $267 so far, with one thing left. So this is where you can maybe be able to save a lot of money on this list if you've already got this tool, and that's going to be your angle grinder. If you're going to start welding, you need an angle grinder. There's no question about it, and I'm including it in this list because you really can't weld without it. You can weld without it, but you're not going to be able to clean, prep, or do any of that sort of thing without having an angle grinder. So it's almost as vital as the welder itself, and you're going to have to budget some money towards this. So this is the Metabo HPT. I featured this in a different video on angle grinders I'll link to up here. And at that time it was on sale for $39 from $49. Now this is on Amazon for $29. I have a feeling it's going to be discontinued and they're clearing out the warehouse. So if you need one of these, I would definitely go ahead and jump on this. However, you want to look for an angle grinder that's rated at 6 amps or more, and that'll be more than enough to handle your basic welding, grinding, cutting, and metal prep needs. I've also included a link to the Wen grinder in the description below. It's similar spec at a similar price. If this one is no longer available, check that one out. If you've already got one, then you're good to go. So in addition to the grinder, you're going to want to budget yourself $20 or so for consumables for the grinder. And what I mean by that is cutoff wheels, flap discs, and I would throw a wire wheel in as well. Cutoff wheels, obviously, you're going to cut your metal down to size. Your flap discs are going to prep your metal as well as clean up your welds when you're done. Your wire wheel is there to clean up any rust or loose debris on the metal or clean up the welds when you're done as well. They're really good at getting the soot off of flux core welds without actually grinding any of the metal away. But you definitely need to put this in your budget if you're going to start welding and don't already have one. With your grinder and consumables, that's what brings us to the $416. And I believe that is all you need to actually start welding. Some of it you may argue is not necessary, like the clamps and magnets, the pliers. You don't have to have them to start welding. However, they do make it easier, especially if you're starting out, and they're going to lead to a lot less frustration. So I include them, and I think clamps are a must, whether you're metalworking or woodworking. Clamps make everything a lot easier and really do make a world of difference in the enjoyment you're going to get out of the work you're doing. Now, one thing I did not include in the 416 is the table. You don't need a welding table to start welding. I started welding on the garage floor, the patio out back, and I've even used a set of sawhorses and an old scrap piece of plywood, and the plywood's gonna get burnt and stuff like that. That's okay if it's a scrap piece. Just make sure that nothing's hot when you're gonna put anything away. But it worked just fine. If you do need a table or want a table, this is the Chicago Electric one from Harbor Freight that I have in front of me here. It's currently $89.99, and I couldn't believe it when I looked it up a little bit ago because I only paid $59 for this about a year ago. So definitely look out for a coupon if you're gonna go that route. Jegs sells this same table as their brand on Amazon for $99.99, and it's a nice table. My only issue with that is that at $99.99 you're getting close to some of these other tables in the $100 to $200 range that have a few more options or maybe a little bit bigger and may have a little bit nicer build quality to them. So you don't need some Certiflat, $4,000 welding table to start welding. You don't need any table to start welding, but one of these would do just fine. Just keep in mind that $100, if you can stretch your budget a hair up into the $130, $140 range, there are some other options that may be a little bit nicer. With that said, I've been using this one here in the garage and it's been just fine. I have done a couple modifications to it, which I will link to one of them here. And I've also added a TIG torch holder on one side, and I do have plans on building a rack for my grinders on the other. But yeah, that's all you need. So the low end of this list comes in at $393 for the lowest priced everything on this list for flux core. The high side's $416, and like I said in the beginning of the video, that's no discounts, no promo codes, no sales. So you should be able to get yourself all of this stuff either on sale or with a promo code, especially if you can buy things over time and can watch for some sales and deals. And like I said, there's a YesWelder 10% off coupon code in the description. There are also a lot of the YesWelder stuff I talked about in this video is currently on sale on Amazon as I'm making this. I just wanted to keep the pricing relevant, so I use the list price so that you know you're going to come in underneath that price when you go ahead and purchase it. So if you budget $400, you're going to be able to find all of this stuff for under $400. Hopefully, with inflation and everything going on right now, that doesn't change too much. But as of now, if all the sales stopped, you'd be able to buy this list for $400. You should be able to get it for closer to $300 if you watch for coupons or use the one in the description. I hope this video was helpful. I have started doing live streams. I did one that was a test, and then I did a real first one on Sunday. It was kind of a bad day because of the holiday weekend. Not many people were able to get on, but I hope to continue to do them on Sundays around 6:30 Central Time. And once I get the community feature unlocked at 500 subscribers, I will be posting any information about live streams there. I just don't have access to that yet. But if you want to watch some other videos, I have the one on flux core versus stick welding and what's the best thing to start with. as well as the scrap metal video, so you can find some stuff to practice on for free. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Any questions or comments, leave them down below.